Hey everyone, see the road off to the left where those trucks are coming in? That is the new main road. In front of us is the old main road. They ended up moving the road over there so it would be easier to maintain for a multitude of reasons. It going around, there's no more hill here. Going up, there's no more hill going down the other side. Hills are difficult to maintain on dirt roads because when it rains a lot, spring thaw, melt water, it erodes them, makes them very bad. You see how rocky this road is? They had to add a ton of rock. And in certain areas, you can even see a little bit of pavement. They tried paving it at one point, thinking it would help it from eroding, but a nightmare from below ended up happening, frost heaving. The groundwater did not stop because of the pavement. It was still underneath, freezing, crumpling it. And that's been decades now since the pavement was put in. It's almost unrecognizable now, except a few little pieces. It's still around. It's turned back into a dirt road. This was being used 4 years ago as the main artery for all the logging trucks. Now, it's only being kept open by people like me who are exploring it. It's still open to off-road enthusiasts, and that's about it. That's about the only reason. I believe one person has a camp down here, but there's really not much of a reason for this road to even be open. There was a giant culvert here that I unclogged years ago. The worst one I've ever unclogged, I think, on the channel. And it was for nothing. That's why these days, if we find one that big and dangerous, we don't even really put our effort into it, because it took me 2 days to remove a 5-foot blockage just about, lower the water down about 5 feet. Took 2 days because we had to remove half of it for safety, let the water drop, remove another half of it for safety until we got it down. In a matter of a week, the Beavers had completely plugged the pipe again, so it was all for nothing. It was a dangerous unclogging, all for nothing. Now this area here, see this wide area? Back in the day, there would have been a toll booth here. You would have had to pay a fee if you were a hunter exploring these roads for any purpose. You'd have to pay a fee to the logging company because every single vehicle passing down here is causing damage. It says no snowmobiles on plowed roads. They no longer plow this, and this was the entrance to the great North Woods of Maine. Now the entrance is another hour north, which you still have to pay a fee to enter. This is no longer considered part of the North Woods like it once was. And I would argue this road is actually in better shape at being abandoned than when it was open. This right here was a very bad section of road, but I guess with the lack of the heavy trucks using it, it's actually improved quite a bit. And if we zoom in down there, that's the beaver pond I just mentioned unclogging. They've now made the road into part of their pond, and it's been flooded ever since we unclogged it that day. Never took the effort to try to do it again. Is that a truck down there, or is that a car? I don't think he's even in view of seeing it yet. Is that a truck? What do we have down there? Is this guy gonna go through the water? Some tourist won't go through it, but it's not that deep. That guy should make it. He's thinking about it. He's actually parked on top of the culvert pipe right now. Yeah, that guy's not gonna go through it. It's not that deep though. Yeah, he's not gonna go through it. So that water down there's actually clear. I went through it last night with my off-road lights and I could see it. Very, very good that it wasn't very deep. I'd say maybe 6 or 8 inches. I've seen worse. The flow going across the road is a lot less than it once was because it hasn't rained in the entire month of October. Hasn't really affected the forest or anything because the weather's not that hot. It's not like having a drought like that in the summertime. But that guy doesn't know what's underneath it. Who knows? The road could be super soft. I've seen roads that look like gravel and they've been super soft. Ooh, I think we can even see Mount Katahdin from here. That's nice. But these beavers, since the last time we were out here showing this area in the spring, they've extended their pond even further. If you notice, there's 2 floods down there now, not just one. They've extended their pond to a different culvert pipe and also blocked it. Maybe we'll unblock the smaller one just for fun. We have nothing else better to do today. I just unclogged a couple culverts on an active road. We're just waiting for those to reduce so we can get some before and after footage and also rule out the possibility of beavers still being there. You see here, people have been pushing the road further and further into the edge to avoid the rocks. And on the camera, I can't do anything about the clicking noise today. Sorry about that. I gotta try filling the joints of this tripod with glue. That's all I can think of. It's a brand new tripod in it. Let's see. Loosen that. Tighten it back up. Sometimes that solves it. I don't know if it will this time. Nope. So right here is a culvert that's really small, plastic. They got it flooding across the road. And look at all the trees cut down from the beavers. Ton of them. Ooh, they even have another beaver dam going. We'll get out and have a look at this stuff. The hood is so dusty. Free car wash, courtesy of the beavers. Free car wash. Here we are where the guy turned around. We're gonna park here for a little bit. Didn't even wet the whole hood. Should have been through it faster. It wasn't as deep as I thought. And a lot of things have changed here since when we were unclogging it. When we unclogged these pipes a couple years back, there was a whole line of trees here along the road. Whole woodsy line. The beavers cut it all down to build dams. Here's a pile of debris. Looks like somebody else recently tried to unclog it, but their efforts failed. That's why we stopped. There's actually 2 pipes here. One's here. The lower one is called primary flow. In normal conditions, when it's not flowing much, it would have all the water. It helps not make it not clog. If you had water going through both pipes, it means less flow, more likely to clog up. This is the secondary flow pipe right here. The water's actually lower than it once was. This was actually underwater last time we had a visit. Because of drought conditions. And we're not going to unclog that. Last time the beavers, I couldn't believe how much moose poop they used because they ran out of mud to pack in their dam. Downstream, all that debris down there is from me unclogging it last time. And I am honestly tempted to try this again because the water's so low. But if I start releasing water here, what's going to end up happening is the water's going to back up in here and be filling half the pipe up because there's another beaver dam down here, which is, I think, the reason why, another reason at least, why I stopped coming out to maintain it. And I also think the blockages have got so severe since the last couple of years. Whoa! Is there a beaver in there? Something moved in there. Is it an angry beaver? Something's in there. But look, the whole pipe is just full of sticks. So, this is a bog. This is a floating bog that we're getting on top of. Somebody's in there right now. I don't know who. So I want to stay away from the entrance of that pipe. We unclogged these. I don't remember which one we unclogged. I feel like it may have been the lower one, but I'm not 100%. I feel like this one, if I'm thinking of the right location. Yeah, this was not crushed when we inspected these years ago. See how crushed it is? This is the one that would be easier to unclog because it's out of the water a bit, a little safer. You see how the whole roof is crushed? That's actually because of the beavers, and I'll explain why they were able to make the pipe crushed like that. Now I want to know what moved in this other pipe. This ground is stable, so I can run fast if something starts coming. Hello? Wow, look at all the debris in here. Wow. That dam is closer than you think. That's like a probably 10-foot thick dam, because they always build back stronger because they don't realize how their dam got taken out. They think it was their own failure. So yeah, even if I wanted to try something, that'd be a backbreaker trying to get into that crushed pipe that was not crushed when we unclogged these years ago. So what happened is the water table is much higher. In this area, the ground can freeze up to 4 feet down because the water table's higher here inside the road now. Basically, the water in the road expanded into the pipe because it was easier for the water to expand into the pipe rather than up. It'll freeze in the path of least resistance, which is typically up, causing the road to heave, make uneven bumps everywhere. Sometimes can be dangerous. It's like driving off a little ramp. Sometimes it feels like driving into a little curb. I've almost lost control over some frost heaves that aren't marked on the paved roads. They're just so abrupt you can't see them coming. So if we find ones that are dangerous, we'll mark them even on the public roads. And that's what I believe happened to the pipe there. When we had this thing completely empty back a few years ago, I went for a walk. There's another dam, at least there was. They might not be maintaining it anymore. It might be one gigantic, like 8-acre pond or something. Now right here, here's the water coming through it. You saw there was basically no water going through those pipes. Very good watertight dam. I think I hear a log truck. The new road is like only a couple 100 feet through there, and there's another culvert, but it's not clogged. That's being unclogged and maintained by the logging company. You see right here, beavers have been trying to build a dam right here to make the road into part of their pond. Typically beavers would build a dam there, but because not many people drive here, they started building it here. Looks like somebody's pushed it out of the way to make the water lower to drive through it nicely. We made this water look like coffee now, but I'd say 8-10 inches. That car would have made it without a problem. Oh, here's another guy that amazingly doesn't want to go through it either, even though he has a truck. Focus isn't working well. Yeah, surprised that guy even turned around. It's not that deep. Here's how deep it is. Look at that. 8-10 inches. But they built this road so well, so rocky, because this must have been an issue going on for a while, and they were just sick and tired of the road getting washed out, so they'll add really big rocks, followed by really big gravel, followed by small gravel and dirt to make the top smooth. But if it ever has to flood, the small stuff can just erode out of the way, and that stuff will stay in place for years to come, being under the water. This road will be passable for a long time because they built it really well. Look at all the potholes here. It's because of the beavers. It always being flooded, and it hasn't been maintained now in about 4 years. So the beaver pond is all the way back here too. There's just a little break in the woods, but the pond is actually connected down to this next culvert pipe here. Yep, I got my keys in my pocket. Just making sure, because I'm walking kind of far from the truck. People always ask why I leave it running sometimes if I hop out for just a minute or two. It's less wear and tear on the truck if you leave it running for a minute or two instead of just stop, start. No, it's off right now, but I have the ignition system kind of like a police car, where if the key is not detected inside it, it will not go into drive. So right here, this is actually kind of cool. The beavers built this really long dam through here, through the valley, because that's what beavers naturally have to do. They have to build a whole dam across the valley. But humans have already built the dam for them, the road. And all they have to do is clog up the dam spillway, the culvert. Now, sometimes the beavers will surprise you. Why'd they build a dam that big when they could have just built a smaller one right here? Looks like that maybe they kind of did. That also could have been the grader that did that years ago. But these beavers are very active. I don't know how many live here, but They get things done fast. Look at this. Years ago, I even put cameras up to get them building back. It was weird. I don't know if they were afraid of the camera's infrared or what, but we got them on camera, but not really doing anything. And I think there's a lot of beavers that live in this one pond. If there's enough area, multiple families of beavers will live together, work together. But if it's a smaller, typical pond, they'll be territorial. So where's the culvert pipe? I know there's a culvert pipe here. I have a video years ago showing the beautiful tree frogs making their peeping sounds, and I'm not seeing them. The culvert here. I found the culvert once by accident because there's tree frogs everywhere, and they made like a tree frog paradise, this flooded area. And since it's no longer an active road, no one even bothers fighting the beavers here anymore. Logging is not on the schedule where they would need this road again for another 10 years. So, oh well, let the beavers have it. Somewhere there's a culvert pipe here, but I got to investigate where. It maybe will be covered with really tall grass getting knocked over. Oh, found it, I think. See this dip right here? Okay, maybe not the area I was thinking of. I was expecting to find a plastic pipe. That's a really thick gauge metal pipe. That's a good one. It's got a good flow coming out of it. It's pretty deep in the ground, so I doubt we'll be able to find it over here. Maybe though. It's on the bottom of the dam. Here it is. Oh yeah, that'd be an easy one to unclog, but it's pointless. Any little extra water the beavers will want, that'll be clogged up again tonight. They're nature's water savers. This whole area, every tree you see in the background is gonna die from the flooding, but beavers are very beneficial to the environment, so we'll leave them be for a while here. This road's no longer required. These ponds weigh a lot more than you probably expect them to. It's pushing down into the aquifers. Pushing down into the aquifers is recharging the water table, groundwater, making the surrounding forest healthier, more resilient to drought. It really helps the area out. Then when there's a drought, the forest can absorb all this extra water from the new pond. After the drought usually ends with flooding, these ponds will be typically low or empty. Now it acts as retention to prevent downstream flooding. Unfortunately, the beavers just cause issues sometimes with the roadways, and they have to be relocated. But this is an area the logging company will not relocate them, I was already told, because they're not using the area. These beavers will have to wait another 10 years for that. Look at all the moose tracks, deer tracks, something there, maybe a fox or coyote. It looks like a dog track. These areas here create a lot of stuff for nature, as long as there's a good flow going in or out. If it's a pretty stagnant beaver pond, they'll become disgusting. All the rotting stuff below. These areas also become a natural methane gas reserve, all the rotten stuff underneath. That's why when you drain back a beaver pond, you'll see bubbles start to come up all over the place. That's because the water pressure against the mud is actually keeping a bunch of gas trapped. When the water level drops, there's less water pressure against the mud, so the pockets start to let loose. Some people in my comments before I explained that didn't understand, and they were saying more water pressure would make gas come up because there's more pressure on it. But the pressure is against the mud holding the gas. It's not like it's just the gas sitting down there. Right here looks like a bunch of egg sacs for tadpoles and stuff that hatched years or at the beginning of the year, and it just became algae covered. So this area is also a giant frog hatchery. Beavers are beneficial. The only thing is, if the road can't handle it, it'll push out, and that sediment isn't good for the environment either. But this road was built so well, it's actually pretty wide. That's a beautiful bird. There's a pair of them. What are those? What is that bird? I think I asked that question before, and oh, come on, focus. I think someone said it's a gray jay. Wherever it went, I lost them. Oh, it's down there. A gray jay, I think I was told in the comments. Because we saw one of them when we were camping at the abandoned military base. There's a pair of them right there. See the grass here pushed over. This is an active trail where the beavers go in and out of the pond. Because beavers rarely have just one pond. They have this, the one down here, which is kind of below capacity. Like I said, this whole downstream area fills up if it's been raining a bit. And I believe beyond the next road, they have a whole nother one. Maybe this area is drained because they unclogged the culvert down there at the active road. That might be why. I'm sure the beavers are giving them major issues at the next road, only a few hundred feet away. This pond, it'd probably take you a good amount of time because it goes back there. See this tree line? All the really big trees back there? It goes back there to those trees. It's a big area. Probably a 20-acre pond, something like that. And the water depth right here, there used to be a little pond area before these culverts were always being clogged. So the deepest point of this pond is, I believe, around 8 feet. Even when you drain it, there's a good amount of water that stays sitting here. Look at this. There's more of those tadpole eggs. When I was unclogging this, there was an awesome moment. I have a video called Gas Eruption, and it's exactly what I said. When I was unclogging this, suddenly it scared me because I thought it was an angry beaver about to come up. Whole big plume of mud and gas bubbles came up, and a whole bunch of floating debris came up with the gas. Yep, that's why that happened. If you look out here, there's a whole bunch of uprooted trees. The land actually is floating, and that's why the trees fell over. That's what you call bogs, gas-filled mud, a bunch of debris that floats, creates islands that can actually shift and move around in situations like this. But the island wasn't big enough, and the tree knocked the whole thing over. So when the water level rises, a lot of times the land can actually float on the edges of the swamp with trees on it. It's called a bog, which is really cool. Look up some videos of big floating bogs that cause issues to infrastructure. A bog will come floating over, sometimes after they unclog one of these, sometimes in front of them, sometimes after they leave. A big bog will just go plug the pipe right up. I've also seen bogs that are acres big on lakes during a storm. Trees growing on top of the bog will act like a sail, pushing it, detaching it from the mainland, and it'll smash into people's docks, boats. It'll crash into a bridge. Sometimes if the bridge's supports are weak, it'll damage it. But there's cool videos of giant acre-big bogs getting stuck, and people have to grab all their boats, grab onto it, move it, and anchor the whole island somewhere. Those videos are really cool. We've experienced a bunch of bogs, but nothing bigger than, I'd say, 8-foot diameter. And we had one about a week ago with the rake. I was actually able to tear the grass island apart and send it through the pipe so it wouldn't cause an issue. I've never had a bog in a water that looked clean enough to actually use it like a boat. There's been areas that I've gone walking in. I have a video titled Walking to an Eagle's Nest. I wanted to walk up to a massive tree where I knew there was eagles just to see what we'd find around the area. When we got up to the tree, we realized that we just walked across an entire area that was floating. It was like walking on a water mattress. It was really cool, that video. But the thing is, who knows? There could be a couple feet of mud underneath it. There could be 20 feet of mud underneath it. There could be 20 feet of water underneath it. You don't know how much that bog is actually floating. So if you're ever walking on one of those, be very careful you don't slip underneath it, because you probably won't come back up if you aren't able to grab onto some bushes on the way down. But this was interesting. This is always an interesting location to show and explore and show what the beavers do over time when the road crews go away, when it stops being maintained. Because whoever pulled this pile of junk out today, probably sometime over the summer, that's not the logging company. The logging company doesn't step in there like I do. They would bring a machine out here and get it done pretty fast. They'd have a big log or a telephone pole. They'd jam it back and forth, and that's how they get everything out of the pipe. They wouldn't be doing this. So that's just some random person who tried to come out and unclog it and obviously gave up 5 minutes into it. And it's a big job. When I did that, it was like a 8-hour job. We had the time lapse over a period of 2 days. All right, back in the truck. Let's go for a ride. Show you the rest of this road on the way back to the new road. And this road is in bad shape, really bad shape, you're gonna see. So I'll leave the wide panoramic angle so you can see the hood move around. Before, I used to show the hood of the truck in my videos. People always said if the angle was too high. The majority of people, after doing a poll, said they would rather the hood be in at least a little bit, because the camera's auto stabilization is just so good that you wouldn't be able to tell how bad the road actually is. I could shut it off, but then I'd probably forget to turn it back on. And I kind of like being able to show the hood moving around. People always think I'm using some sort of device that the camera's attached to, whatever you call those devices that move around with your movements to make it steady. I don't even know how those companies are still in business these days. Most cameras have auto stabilization that is phenomenal, that people actually think I'm using additional devices like that. You see how the camera sits perfectly still as the truck is able to rock back and forth so violently over these bumps. Auto stabilization is so good these days. So you can drive over here. People are plowing over the bushes just for that little bit of extra smoothness. I wonder if we'll catch up to that car or not. There's some people out here, especially the tourists who aren't used to these roads, they'll be crawling at like 2 miles an hour or something. You can catch up to them sometimes. The majority of the people on the roads this time of year are out here for hunting. And even the ones that aren't are usually dressed up like hunters. Like, I got fluorescent stuff on too. You gotta make yourself known so someone doesn't think you're a deer. There's been a lot of deer around here recently, and hunting is an important part of keeping that in check, because with the logging companies around creating all these open areas, which are basically pastures of grass before they grow in, it really makes the deer population explode with all these unnatural clearings. And the hunters help keep that stuff in check. I've noticed a huge uptick in deer around this area in the past couple of years. It used to be you'd never see a deer, you'd just see moose. Moose aren't that big of an issue. They rarely will ever run out in front of your car. If you hit them, they're usually around the corner, and they're a big dark animal that just blends into the night. So they're more dangerous than a deer, which is usually light brown. If we were getting normal rain, all these holes would be full of water. And I learned once, if the potholes are really small, you can actually hydroplane over them one wheel at a time. It makes the ride a little smoother. Now here's the one road where the one person that lives down here is. And that road isn't the best either. We've done some uncloggings down there, but those beavers aren't around anymore. It's a real bumpy road. Still beats a bumpy road in a city where they just refuse to fix it, because at least this isn't sharp pavement. So yeah, I was saying moose usually don't run out in front of you. It's rare. And for the very first time, it happened to me about a week ago. I had a moose run out in front of the truck, and yeah, that moose, I almost got into a very bad accident because of that moose. And I could see in the dash cam footage, it's a dark animal blending into the woods. It was off to the side, facing away from the road, but for some reason, instead of going into the woods, it turned around and at the last moment and ran out in front of me. We did actually graze that moose. It actually got pushed over, but we had almost completely stopped. I hit the brake just in time, and I don't think that moose was injured. It just ran away. But that could have been really bad if I hit the brake just a couple seconds later. Probably just a second later. But that's why you'll notice out here the logging trucks have huge metal bumpers, push bars, guards all over the front of them, because they're ready for that stuff. Some of the log trucks out here, I'm not even exaggerating, they've got to be going highway speeds on these roads. Not the roads with the potholes, of course, but the well-maintained roads, you can go pretty fast comfortably. I can go 50 miles an hour, 80 kilometers an hour, pretty comfy. But these log trucks, when they're loaded up, they ride smooth. They'll be traveling highway speeds around 65 or 110 kilometers an hour. They're pretty fast, these log trucks. It's scary how fast some of them are. I got some videos where they're driving with empty trailers and you can actually see it drifting a little bit on the loose gravel. Some of those trucks go really fast. And they can. These are private roads. They own them. They move really quickly. And when they're going that speed, if they hit a moose, the front of that big rig is going to be destroyed. So that's why they have the guards. But it's actually very rare when they actually hit a moose. I've been exploring these roads for years, and I've only seen that twice. Just twice out of all the years. One time I actually saw the moose, extremely mangled, and another time you just saw a trail of blood since they've already cleaned it up. Or the vultures cleaned it up, I'm not sure. But you see this road, how it's pretty curvy, bumpy, has numerous flooded areas with beavers, that massive hill, which is a all year-round chore, keeping it maintained. It's also probably very dangerous in the winter. So they built this brand new, nice road going around. So we're gonna head back where we started now. This is the new road heading back. So the log trucks all carry chains for their tires in the winter in case they need them. But tire chains restrict them to be traveling about 30 miles an hour, 50 kilometers an hour. And when they're driving slow like that, it's costing the logging company money. They're not able to get stuff out of here as efficiently. And in the winter, they want to be able to get as much out of here as possible because the roads are frozen. They can have heavier trucks that won't get stuck in the mud. Their logging equipment can log the very wet swamps and woods. So it's more beneficial if they can keep their speed. So they'll oftentimes drive around with dump trucks just dripping gravel all over the road. They'll spread gravel on top of the ice so they don't need tire chains and they can get pretty good traction. So these roads, it's rare when they get icy. They sand them very well. They put gravel on top of the ice very well because tire chains would slow them down. It would keep them from making as much money as the trucks slow down. Less wood is getting out of here. And the trucks are so heavy too that it's hard for them to get sliding, but if they do start sliding, it's going to be a nightmare. Like I saw the aftermath once of where the logs went off the road. They just abandoned it. They didn't clean up the logs for some reason, and a lot of them were actually burnt in that video when I was showing it, so I'm thinking it caused some sort of fire. This is the culvert right here where that water from the beavers is coming out. Let's go over here. I'm going to put my window down and I want to show you what we got here. Years ago, this was also a beaver issue. Yep, right here. Here we got the big culvert, which they've clogged in years past. That's why it's a grassland with little trees, because it's been flooded. It killed all the trees that used to live here a long time ago, just based on the area. The beavers come back every now and then. Right up here, where those tree line is, there's a big beaver dam there, and that big beaver dam there is what backs up the water to that other road. That other road is right behind this larger tree line you see back there. So yeah, they have a whole chain of beaver swamps, and I'm sure there's more even beyond this road, maintained by the same families of beavers. All right. always a cool area to show, and I hope today's video showing you the Beaver swamps was interesting. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Now we're going to travel back to a few locations we had earlier. Wow, this road is really, really bad for being the main artery. But they've been working really hard with the graders because they still got a little bit of time left before winter to fix these issues. If they don't fix them before the ground freezes, they're stuck with them. Although they can probably smooth it out with snow and you probably won't even notice once the plow goes over them. Here's another culvert, not affected. That's just to handle the drainage ditch water. Drainage ditch is getting in a little bit of a rough shape too. See that? The ditch needs to be dug out again. That might be why those potholes are there. Water collects in the road since the ditches are kind of filled in and neglected. They got to do a little work there, but the rest of the road is a lot better and it beats the other one. Hey, is this that same guy that we saw turning around? It might be. Didn't want to go through the flood either. Very well might be. Alright, so we're on our way back to some other blockages that I'm letting drain for a few hours so we can get some good befores and afters. Something else I want to add to this video and teach about these frost heaves. Another danger that you would encounter with frost heaving is, like I said, it expands. The water in the road expands. It can push dirt and rocks. It actually drives boulders up. That's why these roadways every year, why are they constantly pulling boulders out of the road? Don't they run out? It's because the frost line is driving them up from below, and the grader and excavators have to get these giant rocks out of the road, which sometimes become high enough that you hit them. Some of them sink back down, making big holes that you could crash into. But one danger that's actually caught me a couple of times is those frost heaves. They expand, making empty voids, which will later fill with water and mud, and then the top of the road in the spring is dry. You'll be driving over it, and suddenly a dry road like you see right in front of me now, you'll sink into a mud hole. It just opens up out of nowhere. I've got stuck in them before. That's how I once got stuck 19 hours in the mud. Had to keep the vehicle running because it was bubbling the exhaust pipe out of the mud. If I would have shut the vehicle off, the mud would have gone into the exhaust system and hardened, and I would have needed a whole new exhaust system if I would have shut the vehicle off. It would have clogged everything up. Engine probably would have been fine though, but that would have been a nightmare. And it didn't cost much gas. A vehicle idling doesn't really use much fuel. I think in the 19 hours I used less than a half a tank of fuel just idling. And that was definitely worth it, half a tank of fuel instead of having to replace my whole system. That's just another danger to be weary of in the spring. You can have frost heaves out of nowhere. It's kind of complicated of how you would know they're there, but typically if you see any water seeping out of the road, or if there's a random wet area along a hill, typically you got water going on underneath there. You got bedrock driving the water up in a specific spot. It's just never going to stop. You have to put down drainable fill with a good road on top of it. That's the only way to get rid of those issues.